koutou. Thank you for joining us on this Zui today. E nā mana, e nā reo. Rau rangatira mā, tēnā koutou katoa. Kia ora everybody, and welcome to our session today. We're going to be looking at some interesting links that I think there'll be something here for everyone. And this session is part of our Ngā Poutama Mata Whenua Wānanga series, practical GIS mapping for those working in Māori communities and trusts and environmental groups. So today we're going to turn the technical dial right back to the beginning. We're going to keep it real easy and simple. I'm going to be sharing some links with you shortly, but first just want to introduce my colleague Tania Tehira.
Kia ora koutou everyone. So ko Tania tōku Whenua no hokianga oku tupuna. Kei te noho o ki tāmaki makaurau. Kia ora, my name's Tanya and I'm a whakapapa to Hokianga. I was very lucky to visit back home a couple of weeks ago. Spend some time up in Opanoni and visit some of my nannies and koros at Pakanai Hurupa. Yeah, really happy to be here, and hopefully the apps and some of the data we've got it stats. I'll be able to show you that, and hopefully you'll find it useful. So thank you, Dwayne.
Got it, Tanya. So we'll go through some of the more generic stuff first. Things like what tools and information are available, what you can do with some GIS maps today without training. So today is your training, by the way. And how to access free resources, what's available for the whenua, for the moana, tangata whenua, and a whole bunch of others. And then we'll also have a look at, okay, that's cool, but then what? What do I do with it? How do I use it? How do I put it into my PowerPoint? How do I put it into my Word document? And that's really easy and real quick. So what I'm going to, if I can just remind you, if you can have your microphone on mute, hopefully I won't talk too long and we'll have plenty of time for a bit of a kōrero at the end. But in the meantime, please do feel free to put any pātai into the chat, and if I can see it, I'll address it then, or otherwise we'll come back to it as well. So, and quite often I'll say, where should we go to next? And what I'm meaning is what wāhi, what place. So it's kind of a first in, first serve. So be ready at the keyboard to type in your place name or your land block or things like that, because we can just use those as an example. Okay, so first thing is I'm going to share with you a URL, a link, and this is a very short link, but it takes you to a document that has got a whole lot of useful links that we'll add to and update over the, which we do all the time, add new stuff. Some of the old stuff gets broken or gets replaced. So if you go and have a look on the chat, you can type in, if you want as well, if you're on a mobile, just type into a browser, into Google, hae.re/kite. So hae.re/kite, and that will redirect you to this document. And I'm just going to share my screen, and I can step you through what this is. Here we go. Should be working now, I think. Okay. So in here, this is
so you won't listen
master page of links. Oops, who we got on? Just put you on mute there, mate.
Talk later. Okay, bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Oh, someone else just on mute. Just a reminder, whānau, if you can just press mute, just till we have a chance to have a bit of a kōrero. So what this document provides you with is links to all kinds of resources, to software, if you're into that, but not essential for today. We're not going to look at any desktop applications. You don't need a high-spec laptop anymore to do mapping. We'll have a look at some of the what I've called essential data sources. So where do you find things on the whenua? Where do you find a database of all the land blocks or the awa? Anything you can think of, if it's available, we'll be able to share that to you. And oh, what's that? Not quite yet. We'll have a look at how to access Māori land court blocks, how to get a report for your whenua, and how to access all kinds of data that I think you probably, a lot of it, you may not have even seen before. But you now have access to all of these links. There may be the odd one that's not quite working as expected, but I went through them recently and they're mostly working. But if you just do point out any ones that you can't get into, just let me know and we'll sort it out. So what I wanted to start with is, what is this GIS mapping thing all about? So let's have a look at this. This is an example of kind of, if we jump ahead, some of those folks who have joined us on previous sessions, what's the so what? Where do we get, how do we use this stuff? What is this stuff? So GIS mapping is when, of course, you get layers of information from different places, but also how do you present that information to whānau, to a trust board, or for funding application, things like this. So what do you do with it? This is the kind of the, if we jump right forward to the end, how do you use this information and put it all together? So you can create 3D point-to-point fly-throughs, which is what this one. Typically, these are called 3D fly-through. And you can create these at no cost, just takes a little bit of time and effort. We won't be going through these in any detail today of how to create them, but I'll be showing you some other tools that you can use. Just
sorry, Dwayne.
Videos. Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt. Could you turn up your mic just a little bit, please?
Oh, just on mine.
Oh yeah, is
that better?
It's
Let me
better.
just
Yeah.
check what
Cool.
how am I? Let me just
Thank
check
you.
what microphone's been used here. There we go. You can hear me okay, Tania?
Yes.
Sound coming through? Sweet.
Thank you.
Okay, back to it. So in this, we've used a collection of maps, of photos, 3D views, telling a story, adding in some photos, but of kōrero, and augmenting or sharing the story. And this is just a example story, it's made up. Of being able to share, what do you do with these kind of maps? How do we use them? What are the kinds of things that you can access and use? And this was a really popular example of taking a couple of maps, some photos, pulling it together with your kōrero and presenting it to an audience. So that for me is kind of the height of the end goal. So you can access that anytime you want, just off that link here, this link here in the main doc. Now we'll come back to story maps, but that just to give you an example. What we'll have a look at next is how to get some historical imagery way back from 1936. We'll have a look at some satellite imagery sources. So you will have all used Google Maps, but there are also older satellite images that you can go back and capture for different reports and things. We'll have a look at time lapse, Google Earth time lapse, and that goes over about 40 years worth of satellite imagery that allows you to create a video And we'll also have to look at the LINS data service, how you access information on property, awa, roto, moana, all kinds of different data sets that are freely available to you to access. So let's start with RetroLens. So RetroLens is way back from, okay, first test. Who wants to chuck a wahi in the chat? First served, first one. Ah, there we go. Got a Saskia. Okay, so we paste, whoops, in here. Didn't quite get. Whakarewa. Oh, no, my typing is poor. Rewa. There we go. So this will zoom to whakarewa. And we can zoom out a bit and just check that that's landed at the right place that we're expecting. Yep. So all of these yellow squares, these are represented areas of historical photos. And you can see here, we can go right back to 1945. There's 1,226 images in the current view. So if we zoom down again to whakarewa, and it might not be exactly the spot that you're expecting it to be, but you can also see here there's images from 1926 to 2024. But if we bring that back down, probably not that many in the latter years, but earlier years, we can go back to before 1970, just an example. We can see there are 59 images. So you can click on these images and you can use the spyglass and you can access or download the whole picture, go on large. And here is the scanned image from, I forgot what period this was, but on the corner or on the edges of the photos, you'll be able to find a reference time frame and sometimes the time of day that the photo was taken. So I'm just looking for some little widgets on the edge. Okay, didn't have it there. But we can come back here and it's also got, this one was from the 4th of September, 1945. So how these photos were taken is in series by an aircraft. And so then the photos were developed and then about probably 10, 15 years ago, they're all scanned into online database so we can access them. So this will work for pretty much any place. Now, someone else put a place in there. Partai there, will the old aerials be georeferenced? Unfortunately, I don't think they are at the moment. So there is a trick to bringing them into Google Earth, for example. If you've got Google Earth desktop, that's probably the simplest way to bring them in and overlay them. But you can also do it by hand in PowerPoint where you've got 2 or 3 and you just sort of smush them around into the overlay. There's, depending on different levels of experience, I guess. So if we have a look here for Uawa, we can see, sorry, Ua, there are 181 images before 1970 in the current view. So if we wanted to go and have a look up here, there is a bit of a slash pile, I think, in one of these areas here. So you can come and see, say you wanted to know something about maybe the 80s. So you can bring this up between 79, 2016. Some of the pictures are not quite always as detailed as you might like, but they're the best ones that are available. Come down here, click on large. And then you can even zoom in further and get right into the detail. I think that's actually the spot I was looking for. So you can get these usually about 1 every 10 years or so. Some places have got more. There's more in the cities rather than the rural areas, but you can see that it's a pretty good resource. So that will take care of any historical photos you want, right from as soon as they were available in the late 30s, through until about the 1990s or so. From 1990s, they stopped taking film photos, started using digital, and also satellite imagery was coming online. So you will have used Google Earth for, Google Maps for all kinds of things, looking for directions and these kinds of things. And this is a really helpful resource where you can have a look at historical satellite images. Now, if we stick with Uawa, sorry, chuck an extra U in there. Oh, not there, up further. No, too far. Okay, we'll pick on, let's go Tokomaru. So what I wanted to do is have a look at Tokomaru and have a look at what are the most recent images available, as in the most current image, but also the earliest image from a satellite. So you can see over here on the left, there's one here from the 13th of June, 23. So this is from the 13th of June. This one's from the 29th of June, 22, and so on, all the way back to 20th of February, 2014. So what you can do is you can zoom to where you want this to be centered. Let's come down here. And then just press play. And what it will do is it will loop through all of those images. And once it's started like this, you can see it's going through each of those files. You can download this as a GIF, and you can put this in a PowerPoint, or you can put it on Facebook or in a Word document, although the animation in a Word document won't work. But for example, you can download this file, file 1, and it will download, and you can, it's a 1.1 megabyte. You can do with it what you want. If you are putting it in a publication or maybe on a public website, you may want to just give a reference to Esri, for example, Esri World Bank imagery, because it is they're providing this at no cost on behalf under license from others. So there's the way back imagery. That third one that I mentioned, the Google time lapse. So this is another overlap. So if you think of aerial photos, 1936 to about to say the 80s or 90s, and then from the 90s onwards, we've got some stuff from Esri way back. There's also some images from Lynn's referenced in the document there as well. And then there is what's called the Landsat series. So what we can do is we can search for a place, and what was next on our list? Waiweka. So if I come over here, let's pick on this one. Unfortunately, Charmaine, that one hasn't come up, but hopefully this one is okay. So when we come down here, what we can do is we can see change over 40 years. So if you keep an eye down the bottom here, this is the time scale, starting at 1984, 1985. And so what Google has done is scan through every Landsat image, taken out the cloud that you can kind of see there, and provided us with a time scale. And you can see they've got added imagery from 21 to 22. Let's see if we can close that. No. So we can zoom in down here, and have a look as well. So the catch with this one, and this is one of the trade-offs, it's 40 years worth, but it's not in the highest detail. It's in Landsat satellite. Usually takes images, I think, where something like 20 megapixels, which meaning each little color that you see on the screen is 1 pixel on the satellite, because it started in the 1980s. So there's another option. And now I see they've moved this into Google Earth as well, which we'll see how we go. We'll have a look at. Another option, and we'll come back to the LINS data service, but I'll just click on this link to show you another source of imagery. These little tiles that you can see here, if we get rid of that one, these provide you with kind of sometimes filling in the gaps. So these are what are called ortho photos. So these were the photos that typically LINS used in the 1980s and later about drawing the topographic maps. So see if we can, no, we haven't got topographic maps on here, just on that drop down, but topographic maps are the maps that you use to go hunting with or tramping. Let's see what else we've got here. Let's come back quickly to Google Earth. So we had a look at that time-lapse thing before. So Google Earth, there is Google Earth Desktop, which I do sometimes occasionally use, but now I mostly would recommend looking at Google Earth Online. So if we have a click on this one, this Aotearoa, and see what happens here. So it goes to the earth.google.com website. It loads up all of Aotearoa, and now it's doing that time lapse for the whole country. So we can also zoom into any place that we want to go. If we go and have a look at, if I show you an example that often uses the pine forest around between Taupo and Rotorua. Used to drive through there all the time, and you can see that change from pine forest into farming in the sort of the early 2000s, particularly around, I think, around Tauhara. You can see there the forest being cleared back into farming, but it will also work for places like other types of land use change or erosion on a very large scale. If we come up here to some of the awa. So I'm sure that you'll be able to find a spot that interests you on here. It works for the whole country. And you can also search up there. So we'll come back to that as well, because I want to show you how to do a place-to-place using Google Earth. Now, there are a few places that that I think I want to just highlight for you. One of those is to get a report, a detailed report on a land block, for example. And so if we come to this one here, Te Puna Kokiri, come to tupu.nz. It's the nice short name. If we come in here and we just type in tupu.nz, find your whenua, get a report about your whenua Māori, enter the name of your whenua, name of the trust, or the block number. Now just figure out where we start it. Here we go. Chuck it on there. Anybody want to add in a block? Wani. Kia ora. We'll try this. My copy paste is just not working. Oh, let's try this one. So we can see there, Oani must be a place, maybe not a block, because it will populate up here with examples. So if we go for whoever was next on the quick draw. Whoops. Paste it. Oh, that didn't work either. Nah. Tera. There we go. And we're after 3E. So we can have a look here. Ida. 3. So we've got 3E. There we go. And we go search. Okay, and this gives us the name of the block, Māori Land Court District, governance name, and then we can go in more details. Tells you number of hectares, certificate of title, and you can find out who the trustees are, all kinds of information here. One thing I wanted to show you is to go download on this PDF report. May take a few minutes. We won't wait for it to finish, but it gives you a very detailed PDF report. And so what this does is it takes layers of information, so soil types, weather, climate, land, soil, geology, and many other layers, and gives you the whole thing in one PDF. That'll probably take a little while for that to come, but that is through the site Tupu. Let's see, what else we got here. Māori Land Court have changed their system recently, and it doesn't work as I expected it would. If we come here, Māori Land Court maps, say. That's not quite what I was after either. I'll find that link after this and share it back to you. But essentially, I think, in my opinion, that Tupu is a better source to start with. If you then have further queries on your land block, you can then go to the Māori Land Court. But to be honest, I haven't seen much different or better information stored there. But Māori Land Court, of course, is the source of truth when it comes to those land blocks. Let's see, what else should we have a look at? Some blocks there. Let's have a look at what you can get from Toitu Te Whenua, from Lynn's Data Service. So there are imagery, parcels, property titles, and you can access property owner details. They have bathymetric data, so data on the moana, place names information. Well, let's have a look at it. Let's go there and have a look. I'll just close down some of these tabs. Take that off. So let's say I wanted to go, whoops. Let's go back to the start. I wanted to look for titles or land blocks. Starts at Aotearoa, and I add my layer that I'm interested in. And when I zoom in, it gives me the property boundaries. This one gives you the name of the title. It's a pretty sort of mundane data set, very important, of course. But the much more interesting one is in that document, you'll see there's a controlled access group request link. And when you put in your request, they check a couple of details that you provide in there, and then you get added to the property titles, including owners. So that gives you access to you to be able to access the owner details for all of the property in Aotearoa. The condition, for example, is that you don't redistribute this data set on the public internet, and there are some conditions associated with it. And that's just, it's a licensed data set, but that is still freely available to you. Let's say we also wanted to, let's see what else data set we got in here. We go on browse and we can have a look at all the different types of data that are available in here. So for those of you who are not quite yet ready to leap into that sort of GIS stuff, which can take a while, it's useful just to know what's here and is available at no cost. Here are those topo maps I mentioned before, for example. We turn that one off. We can add this to our map. And we can zoom in, have a look at some details. So this is the official topographic map for Aotearoa. It has all of those details on there that are also available as data sets. If you're into using GIS, you can look them up and download them. And just a question there from Dan. Yes, you'll be able to use that file. It just sits there the whole time. What else can we find on Lynn's data service? Let's come back here a bit. If we go on in the search here and we go stream, there's all kinds of data in here on different areas. What I'm looking for here, rivers maybe. So all of these little blue lines that you can see on here, the Purua stream and all of these other streams, this is the raw data used to create that with. So if you're into using QGIS, for example, QGIS is a free open source GIS software that you can download and use at no cost. You can download this data physically to your hard drive, or you can also use it to live stream the data straight into your application. We cover that in some other sessions. If you're interested in learning more, we just go through building on this session. Let's see, what else we got in here? If you wanted to know some things like wetland extent, you can click on here and it'll take you to Ministry for the Environment, and you can see they have a similar system. So you can look up where current wetland extent 2013 is, and you can also have a browse through just by clicking this icon here. Browse what other data sets do they have as well. This just provides you with access to all of them. Let's see, I'm just conscious of the time, and please do feel free to put some partai in the chat because we can chase those down as well. Land use, for example, land use change over time. What I wanted to just quickly show you was using Google Earth in the desktop browser. So if you go to earth.google.com, and let's say you wanted to show or tell a story going from place to place to place in 3D. So if we, looks like I've got one there for my pepeha, let's use that. So if I click on one, it takes me to that place. If I go back and I go File, New Project, New Drive Project, and I go, just try to remember where to go here, click on the pin, and I can drop it on a place mark, and I'm just moving the map around by holding Shift and also the middle mouse button. Arahama, I don't know how you do it in on a trackpad, but here, for example, I could put Waikari. I can come over here and I can go another pin. Where'd my pin go? There we go. And I can go Waikato, Hoa. Waiting for changes to be saved. And now when I click on each, it will fly from place to place like this. And so you can build on this over and over and over. as much as you want, and you can add different types of icons. You can add different types and colors and things. Pātai there, Preva, how would you look for old pā sites? Kapai. Good question. Where would I begin? Pā sites. So there may be one in here from ARC sites. We got, haven't got a link there from ARC sites, but I know there is a data set called this one, ARC sites, and I think it's a subscription one because they have to fund the site themselves. But it does have, it's this one. It does have links to all of the different archaeological sites that have been identified by various archaeologists. I just don't think they provide it. Oh, there is a free one here. Here we go. Telefib. I'll grab this link and put that in the chat. So there's, and you can go down and it'll have little stars and things for each of those locations where a pā or middens or other sites, other locations have been identified. Here we go, just there. That one. Pātai there from Adrian, LiDAR datasets, there sure are. There are heaps of them. So LiDAR, if we come back up to the top here, there are two different sources here. If you want the core source data, you can go to either Open Topography, or you can go to the LINS data service, because I believe the LINS data service now are streaming LiDAR point clouds directly. So if we go to data.lins and go to LiDAR, let's see. So the difference, there's a difference here, there's between LiDAR point clouds, which are very large data sets, and you do need a grunty machine to access some of those or to make them go. There's also the elevation LiDAR 1 meter DEM. So LiDAR is when you have a plane flies over with lasers, and it measures tops of the trees, and the lasers will go down through the canopy. They'll also reflect off the ground. So you will have seen articles in the last 10 years or so about the South America, where they have identified a lot of the earlier Mayan temples and things, where they're still forested, but they've been able to identify through landforms. And that's what this LiDAR can let you do. This is generalized up to 1 meter, because typically these data sets are used for visualization and also for water modeling and a heap of other things, 3D as well. But if you're after the point clouds, and I just want to point out back in here, this one, the Open Topo. So this is more kind of a more advanced topic, whānau. So you can still come in here and have a tutu. You cannot break any of these sites that I've shown you. So even if they don't work at that particular point in time, if you just refresh or come back to it later, it will still work. You cannot break them. Let's have a look, and let's go somewhere else. Where are we looking here? Find a spot. I think I saw Paeroa. Let's have a look at Paeroa. So we come down. Where is Paeroa? Somewhere in here. There we go. So we zoom down here and we can see that Paeroa has 2 shades of red. So that means it's got more than one data set. And generally what we do is we zoom down. And here's a challenge for you, for those of you who are keen on this. There's in one of these data sets about 5 years ago, I think it's this hill just here. There's a tree and it looks like a chicken. if we go here, we can see here there's data from 2021 and from earlier. So the chicken tree is probably in this one, but we'll go with this one. Point cloud. Let's click that. And that's the about. Whoops, I've forgotten how to do this now. Click this one maybe. Yeah, here we go. Select the area. Let's zoom out a bit. Yeah, that'll do. And we go fiddle around with some of these. So data download, not fast because I'm not going to download it. 3D generation, DEM generation. Not going to use that either. I'm going to go with the 3D point cloud. So number 5 is the one to look for. Generate 3D point cloud visualization. And then you just put some data in here, Pairua test, and your email address. So I'm going to hand over to Tania, who's going to have a look through some of the demographic and population information. And once this has finished processing, I'm going to share it in the chat with you. And you can have a look and have a to-do and have a fly around. So kia ora, feel free to put any pātai in the chat and I'll endeavour to come back to you. But over to you, Tania.
Kia ora, Dwayne. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly share my screen.
Oh, I stopped sharing mine. There we go.
Thank you. So hopefully everyone can see that.
Looks good.
So cool. Thank you. So yeah, I'll just quickly go through some of the I guess like online apps and a couple of resources that we have externally. And all these links can be found on the document. Sorry, Dwayne, I forgot what it was under the essential groups links.
Yeah, yep, just in that document.
Awesome, cool, thank you.
Haere/kite, is that the one you're after?
Yeah, no, that's good. But it can be found as well just with a Google search. If you want to go Stats NZ Geographic Data and Maps, and it will take you to this page. So here we've got, so I'll be going to stat list, which is where we've got a lot of like web maps and applications and some interesting visualizations that like some of my work colleagues have worked on with the previous census. And I'll also briefly talk about the geographic data service. You can download a lot of the data sets and bring them into your projects if you're working on like ArtPro or QGIS or anything like that. Okay, so we go to stat list. So thinking I want to find some information on like maybe emergency planning, or just kind of want to see population in my area and what's happening there. There's a couple of maps here that I can look at. The one I am going to show is our estimated resident population web map based on the 2018 census population. But as you can see, we've got quite a few other apps that look at population, as well as our actual like geographies that we have. So click on this, hopefully it loads. So this one is so we've got our tabbed maps, and I'm going to focus on the statistical area 2, just because I want that kind of more smaller defined area. And as you can see here, we have like the national estimated resident population, but I'm going to go on closer. So I've got one of my marae sitting in here. And if I click, I think this is the, sure they call it the Waipoa Forest, SA2. And this pop-up here, this gives me the stats for the ethnicity stats. And if we go down, I also get the population by age group. So it'd be good to know how many like the matua we have in the area. So 65 and over are 320 people. And we've also got 40 to 64, 440, and then our 15 to 39 age range and our under 15 age range. So that can give me quite a very quick idea of population by ethnicity and the I guess the population size and makeup in the area. And if I was like, okay, I actually want the data itself, I want to, so I can put it into whatever GIS project that I'm working on to have a better look at those stats and to, I guess, overlay it with other data you are looking at for your particular area that you're interested in. We've actually provided additional links to the various like tables and ways that we disseminate data. But for geospatial, we've set up a data platform called Data Finder. And it works quite similar to the LINS one. So in this situation, it's taken me directly to that data set I was looking at on that web app on StatList. So got that there. You can also copy the link to directly to the data set here. And it also has, hopefully, oh, here we go. You can also click on an area on SA2 and it will tell you the SA2 name as well as the other information associated with that layer, like it's got that table data. So if I want to export that data, I would hit export. And just one thing, sometimes if you've like previously gone in here, it might and just cropped it to a particular area. I think it brings in that previous crop. So if you want to remove that, you can just go hit this crop by map viewer. And then if you want to narrow in an area, just use this. Got to admit, it is a tiny bit clunky. Oh, sorry. And then go over here and we've got a range of files you can download this data as, and also have various coordinate systems, but you want to stick with New Zealand Transverse Mercator 2000 and say want to download it as a shape file, select that, and then hit create export. And then it will ask you to log in with your Stats NZ with your coordinates ID if you haven't already logged in with that, because it's sitting on top of the coordinates data service thing. Yeah, that's pretty much it.
Awesome.
Hopefully
Nice
that was informative and wasn't too rushed.
It was great. Thank you, Tanya.